The Heresy of Chabad, Part 2. One of my most popular videos was the video labeled The Heresy of Chabad in response of a video of a person who claimed to speak for some Jewish organization, and the person was a complete Amoritz. The person claimed that anybody who says that a tzaddik who died could be Mashiach is negated by Rambam, which is not true. Rambam does not address that question. And the Rambam does not say anywhere that a person who dies can never be the Messiah. That's just doesn't say it. Rambam doesn't deal with miracles, and that's why the Rambam doesn't deal with a person who dies, that he could possibly be the Messiah, but he doesn't say that he can't be the Messiah. There were a lot of people who responded to this video for extraneous matters. They tried to say that the teachers that I had in Kfar Chabad had learned in Litvish yeshivas. They might have learned in Litvish yeshivas, but they were inspired to be the kind of people that they were by the Lubavitcher Rebbe and by the Derech of Chassidus. Rabbi Moshe Lando is a Chassid. His father learned in Lubavitch. He grew up with the teachings of Chassidus. In fact, he had no airs about him. When I would stand up for him, when I first went to Kfar Chabad, I would stand up for him because I was used to standing up for the teacher. He told me in no uncertain terms that I didn't need to do that we didn't have that kind of separation between teacher and student. He certainly was not the prototypical Litvak, and he has warmth, he cared about other people, and he had no airs of superiority. So to say that, therefore, they learned in Litvish yeshivas and somehow or other I was giving Lubavitch the credit. In Lubavitch, they learned in a certain way. There was a lot of learning done, especially in Kfar Chabad in those days, and there was a wonderful atmosphere. You know, I went to Eretz Yisrael at age 18, and I went to several yeshivas, and very few boys actually tried to befriend me. The friendliest boys were actually in Lubavitch. Okay, they had an ulterior motive. They wanted to make me into a chassid, but they did try to befriend me. I was accepted in Ber Yaakov. There was only one boy that actually tried to befriend me in that group. I went to other yeshivas, and again, there wasn't a whole concerted effort to try to be makar of you. It was only in Lubavitch that I felt a certain warmth and kinship that the guys had for others, despite the fact that I didn't have a beard and I had a long hair. They still befriended me and cared for me as a person, and that's something that I felt automatically. It's a problem all over the world. You go to a shul, and if you don't look exactly like the people in the shul, they don't want to say hello to you, especially a person like myself with a long white beard. Who knows, I may become a mishul, I may be a mishulach and looking for money from them. So, but this is one of the arguments that they gave to me. Another argument that they gave to me was I had no business criticizing Professor David Berger because he has a PhD. His PhD has got nothing to do with whether Messiah can be raised from the dead or not, and the arguments that he gives about the dialogues between Jewish rabbis and the Christians are open to anybody. And I saw what he saw. There's not much that he's seen that I didn't see, and to use the dialogues as a basis of Jewish law and Jewish ideology is silly. As I mentioned, that one of the things that they said was when they said Tov shebegoyim haroig, so the Rishonim said it doesn't say Tov shebegoyim haroig, it's Tov shebegoyim katol. That was the real text, and that meant that the best of the goyim is a Catholic, katol. And that was the way they got rid of that problematic statement of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You're going to use that as halacha. So the arguments that David Berger presents are very specious, and basically just a matter of that he never heard such a thing, that Messiah can be from the dead, despite the fact that there are two Gemaras on it, and the Gemara is almost completely, without any question, that it's possible for Messiah to be raised from the dead, especially since a majority of rabbis in Eretz Yisrael said that it's going to be King David. And King David had been dead then for 1100 years, if you aren't keeping score. At any rate, those are some of the issues that people raised, and the answers are very obvious. So what other things does Lubavitch has that makes it heretical? Lubavitch is daven late. So do a lot of Chassidim. And it's apparent that people who were more into Kabbalistic types of service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu were not so into the time as they were into the intent, the kavanah. And this is clear from many, many people. Many great people would daven long hours, and they didn't look at the clock. And how can they justify it based upon halacha? I don't know the answer, but I do know that people who were into Kabbalistic types of hanhogya, conduct, would take their prayers very seriously, would take long hours, and however long it took, that's how long it took. And they didn't look at the clock. And for those people who are not really davening b'kavanah and not preparing to kavanah, no question about it. They have to daven before the zman, and the certain should have no business davening after chatzos and so on and so forth. That's called pshia. That's called being a kaldas. But the Chassidim who davened late were people who would study Chassidus for hours, and then they would meditate, and they would daven slowly. It took them several hours to daven, and that was the way in which davening was done. Davening, prayer, requires concentration and effort and long hours, and that's just the way it is. And looking at the clock doesn't increase your intent, doesn't help you with your intent. So those people who were into truly davening with their hearts didn't look at the clock, and that was an established practice of the great Kabbalists and probably from the prophets before them. What other things is there? Chassidim were happy. Misnagdim were not happy. Today, Misnagdim try to be happy like the Chassidim. Chassidim are Mekarev. Now Misnagdim try to be Mekarev. Why? Because they see it's good business, but it actually works. So you have to use what works. So the Chassidim want that as well. Chassidim would use Negina. Now everybody uses Negina and uses music. Chassidim won that. Anything where there was an argument between Chassidim and Misnagdim, the Chassidim won those arguments. The idea that every Jew has a special soul and that you have to be willing to overlook certain parts of the person in order to look deeply into that person, in order to save that person, especially Bizman Hazeh. This was established by the Baal Shem Tov and continued on by his Talmidim, by his students, and it works. When you look at a person as a Jew, that he has an essence, a pure soul, and the soul has to be redeemed, and no matter how much the person is gone into sin, the person can always be pulled out. That attitude works and has saved thousands of students, both in yeshivas and out of yeshivas, and that method is now used by everyone. So Chassidim won that as well. So the so-called heresy of Chabad is not really a heresy. A lot of the ways of the Litvaks that they've established, that they're central, they're centrist. Learning in a kollel and taking money, or forcing your wife to work for you and not you never working, and she should raise the children and have a heart attack by the time she's 40. That's not the way of the Torah. You're welcome to look in Rambam Hilchos Talmud Torah about people who take tzedakah money or for people to ask other people to support them. It is not the way of the Torah. The fact that Rabbi Akiva's wife did so, she was she was a Chad B'Dora, and you can't demand a Chad B'Dora's conduct for every Jewish girl. So don't tell me that this is standard Judaism. It's not standard Judaism. If the Rambam would come today, or the Rashba, or the Ramban would come, you wouldn't recognize them. You wouldn't consider them Gedalim, because they actually worked to earn a living. The Rashba, I believe, had a pharmacy. The Ramban was a doctor, as was Rambam a doctor. They actually worked for a living. They didn't take money from the community. You would not see, you wouldn't accept the Rambam today. You wouldn't accept the Ramban. You wouldn't accept Rashba. Well, that's not our shita. It's not the point. The Hilchas Talmud Torah is based upon what it says in the Gemara and the Mishnah, and it says clearly, Kol Talmud Torah Sheni Mamalocha Sefer Libotel. You have to have work. You have to have parnosa. A person who lives off of other people, and the grandfather learns in the same bench with the grandson. That's not the Derech HaTorah. Even though that's become the style in Yerushalayim, that doesn't make it true. And so that's not mainstream Judaism. You want to go ahead and sell mainstream Judaism. That's not mainstream Judaism. That has been done for whatever reason in order to be mechazik to whatever it is, whatever the reason might be. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a person supposed to take care of themselves, not live off of other people. And that clearly is found in the Gemara and other places. And it's just that that's become the style. But it's not true. That's not the Derech HaTorah. So to call yourselves that this is, mainstream Judaism and Chabad Chassidus is not mainstream Judaism, what chutzpah that is. Mainstream Judaism is what the Torah says. And the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, was a Paisik in Nigla, in Halacha, as well as Kabbalah. And we follow the rules of the Baal HaTanya. And Chas v'sholom to say that there's heresy there. And in fact, most of the arguments between the Chassidim and the Misnagdim, the Chassidim won. Chassidim say God is everywhere. The Misnagdim say he's not in the bathroom, he's not in a place of tumah. We said God's everywhere. You just can't see him. Everybody agrees with that today. Chassidim won, hands down. There is no heresy.